Hi guys, I hope you're having a wonderful day today. In this pick a card reading, we're going to be looking into the question, who's got a crush on you and what are they going to do about it? There are three groups to choose from. Group 1 is the purple Stichtite. Group 2 is the red Carnelian. And group 3 is the green Pistachio Calcite. Up next is a close-up photo of these crystals, and I'll see you in just a minute for the reading. Hi, Group 1. You chose the purple Stichtite. So let's start off by taking a look at who's got a crush on you right now. Okay, we've got the Five of Cups, the Hermit, Four of Wands, and the Seven of Cups. So right away with the Seven of Cups, I'm hearing, I thought you were too good to be true. So this feels like somebody that you dated within the last 2 to 3 years. Also the time frame of 3 to 5 years is coming in. So this might actually speak as well with like these two people here on this Two of Wands. There's two people that are crushing on you at this particular point in time. One person, it feels like, sort of fumbled the ball in this situation because they let their fears get the better of them. This could have been somebody that just like ghosted you. One of these two people, you'd probably be like, ew, I don't care if they have a crush on me. Like, I hope that they kind of stay a ghost of the past. Another one of these people, it feels like there was something very legitimate that took them in a different direction, something where they may have had to like move or relocate for work or for school, or maybe you were the one that moved and relocated. Something where it's just like you lost contact with one another for very like natural reasons. So this would have been somebody that was up close and personal in your environment, and then it would have become a long distance thing where you might have tried to make it work. You may even still be friends with that other person, or they kind of just fell off altogether. But it's nothing where there would have been any animosity or like bad blood between the two of you, and it's almost kind of like I've never forgotten about you. That idea of like I thought you were too good to be true for that long distance person. Either the distance was created on your part or on their part. There's a sense that they kind of like doubted. Maybe it was like early in your getting to know one another, you just met, or there was nothing like a real official understanding. It might have just been sort of like a situationship, or you were just kind of hooking up, or just started to date one another when an opportunity, almost like an opportunity that somebody couldn't refuse, came up, and it pulled the two of you in opposite directions. And there was a sense of like, I don't know if we built enough of a foundation with one another to, really like make the promise that we'll stay faithful, or that we can kind of like keep this thing going with all of that like physical, like a geographic distance with this Hermit energy. That Pentacles energy speaks to, kind of the earth plane. And so it feels like this is something that, again, there's these like two competing energies of like people that have a crush on you at this particular point in time. And there's a sense of almost like these two energies kind of like canceling themselves out, or really sort of like overlapping within the essence of what you're able to pick up and perceive. Because again, it feels like one of these people definitely is kind of like, if they ran off in another direction because they thought that you were too good to be true, there's a sense of like the grass was definitely not greener on the other side. And so this would be something that like in your mind, in your perspective, it's kind of like, just stay gone. Like, you treated me in a way that's not acceptable. Like, you totally closed the door to that. And so they kind of bring forth the energy of like desperation. Something, that may have been kind of like an abrupt sort of cutoff. For this other person, though, especially if you're this almost is the energy of somebody you might even just still be on one another's social media, but you don't really communicate that much because of this distance between the two of you. But there's a sense that they sit in kind of an energy of regret because they almost like threw in the towel on this situation too soon. And that may or may not have been something that you had like discussed with them in the time since you've been a part apart with one another. Like that may be something, again, that's kind of like, yeah, I thought that might be the case, or I thought it was a little impulsive, that it's like, you know, for some people, this would have even been somebody that was just moving a couple of hours away from you, not like a huge distance, or maybe you moved a couple hours away and there really was no reason to say, hey, we should just kind of stop what we have going altogether. So for some, there's kind of this regret, like, was that really the right thing to do? You know, to kind of just drop the connection that we had, or, you know, to just kind of assume that we would sort of go our own ways, or, you know, even if it's kind of like an amicable parting of the ways, it's like this person still thinks of you, is still crushing on you, is still just kind of like, I think I made the wrong choice there. So let's get a little bit deeper into this, and see what else you need to know as far as like who these people are. Okay, we've got Dust Devil, Repairing the Veil, and Closing Door. Yes, this is kind of funny. For that one person where you're just like, ew, I don't want to hear from them, they're totally a dusty. They're somebody that you're just like, I don't care. I don't care to kind of know that they are still interested. The way they handled the situation that was totally not right. It was totally not mature. It was totally not fair. And so it feels like that person may just perpetually kind of be this like crushing energy. They now sort of recognize what they had the opportunity to experience with you, but it's like turned to dust. It's no more. You're both kind of in, for some, it's like opposite corners of the world. So this is even somebody with that kind of like dusty energy. They might have had different sort of reasons, you know, for why they kind of pulled away, why they sort of scooted away, why they ghosted. But now there's some kind of geographic distance between the two of you where it wouldn't even be possible to kind of replicate those conditions that they took for granted in the past. Even if they could, it's again the energy of like one of these two people is just sort of like, yeah, I wouldn't give them the time of day. That was something that, and maybe even at kind of like an earlier period of time, you might have been like, if they had knocked on the door once again, and it was like earlier in my healing journey, I might have opened up a dialogue between myself and them. But it feels like you've now come to a point where you don't tolerate this kind of conduct from people in general. And so even though this happened at like an earlier period of your life where you might have had a different perspective or your standards were lower, this person now kind of fits into that category of individuals, or it's like, yeah, you handled the circumstance that way, so kind of just stay gone, remain dust as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, with this energy of kind of this, you know, this braided sort of thread here, again, there's like two people that are crushing on you at this point, and it's kind of all jumbled in together. So it may even be something where it's like at times this may come across like, if you're able to pick up or perceive on this energy of like crush, like someone kind of, you know, directing that sort of attention or that desire towards you, it may almost be interpreted by you as like a hot and cold energy. And this is, I mean, I'm hearing the plot thicken. So it may be something where you're like assuming that it's somebody else entirely, like neither of these two people, because you've had a hot and cold experience with someone, maybe even someone you're still currently talking to, but instead it's these two other people, like from your past, one of who you're kind of like, that's closed, I don't want anything more to do with you. And this other person where it's like, if you found out they were still crushing on you, or that they were still interested, you would definitely be like open to explore that under these new conditions and circumstances. But because it's coming together so entwined, it's almost maybe like your intuition or how you're able to perceive that, you're thinking that it's someone else because it fits kind of the standard for somebody else you've been dealing with or are currently dealing with, that is kind of, you know, maybe they got commitment issues, or it's somebody that, you know, it's kind of like things are moving very quickly with this individual. And so there's a sense of like, yeah, we have these intense experiences and then we each kind of need to retract and hold back. And so there's, you know, that third person in the mix here, like a third person that it feels like would be some kind of I wouldn't even call that a crush, because it may be somebody that like you're dealing with currently, but it's these two other people kind of like they've got their attention towards you and are not necessarily vying for your energy, because both of these people are in this kind of like silent observer sort of stance, but it's something that it's all kind of tangled up here. We've also got this other kind of like spool with this red thread that's like not part of this whole sort of, you know, entanglement here. So yeah, there's a lot of people in your energy at this particular point in time. But there's the sense too, this idea of like the red thread of fate. You know, that it feels like all three of these people could be defined as soulmates, but there's definitely one that is like a karmic soulmate in terms of like negative karma. Like it's their negative karma to kind of just like sit there and yearn for you, but they've canceled themselves out of your reality. One of these people is like a karmic soulmate where, you know, the future may hold the opportunity for something more to be experienced, and then there's somebody that you're kind of like dealing with presently that's not really in this, wouldn't be defined as like a crush, because it feels like there's like a current interaction, you know? So it's like, yeah, you like each other, but it's not kind of like, oh, I'm holding these feelings in. But that person in and of themselves as well is a form of a soulmate. Now, maybe that ascends into a higher level soulmate, or they turn out to be kind of a karmic soulmate. They determine their place for better or worse with you. Yeah, and this idea of like closing doors. So definitely like people from the past, cycles that you've completed are like looking towards you with sort of a desire to like knock on that door, to approach. And so I'm going to get into that energy, like what are these people going to do about this? What is this crush, or in this case these crushes, what are they going to do about it? But with that idea of like the doors, like the last card here and kind of a closing door, this is something where it's almost like you might be on the brink of entering into a new romantic connection. Maybe it's with the person you're dealing with currently. Maybe it's with this kind of more enticing energy from the past, where it was like life just sort of happened. You were pulled in different directions and you're not totally opposed to the idea of reconnecting. It definitely feels it wouldn't be with that like Dusty. That's not somebody that you would, you know, would fit into kind of your current reality. And they don't really feel like in a position to offer much to you, offer much by way of consideration. But it kind of feels like the sense of almost like you're getting ready to step into this experience of like you're going to be claimed by someone, or you're going to be in a relationship with someone. And so that in and of itself kind of washes these energies out, where then they're kind of just like on the bench. They're forced to just remain in that kind of like, I got a crush on you energy. But if you're with someone else, there's like nothing they can really do about it. But it's definitely like the idea of kind of knocking on the door, you know, doors of opportunity, windows of opportunity. There's definitely a sense of like missed opportunities that would apply to kind of like all of these situations. So even though it's sort of off topic, that idea of that third person that may be in your present reality that you're presently dealing with, this a way that you could help kind of define or identify yourself more with these energies is it's somebody that you're still maybe kind of earlier on in your experience with one another, and there have been some missed opportunities. There's been like canceled plans. There's been a sense of like trying to connect, but it becoming very difficult in order to do so in a consistent way, not just because of what that person brings to the table, but it's also because of these other kind of like energies that are still sort of needing to be wrapped up one way or another, like permanently, or at least at this phase in your life that is kind of like it's the threshold to stepping into that new, again, like a new experience of love, a new experience of romance, that's kind of like stalling, or it's one of the challenges or obstacles, energetically speaking, from what you've been attempting to sort of experience or create with someone very presently. So let's take a look and see what these people plan on doing about their crush on you. Okay, so we've got Temperance, Two of Pentacles, and the Eight of Cups. Okay, so it feels like both of these people, the one that you would consider and the Dusty, they're both going to approach. It feels like this is something that is going to be, you know, they're going to come out of just that energy of like desire. They're going to seek you out. They're going to look you up. They're going to make some kind of contact. For some of you, this is going to be something where either of these people is going to like message you and sort of like, hey, I'm going to be in your town. I'm going to be in your city. I'm going to be in your state. I'm going to be in your country. Can we get together and talk? Now, it could be either of those two people, either the person where you're just kind of like block, delete. How'd you get my number? How'd you get my contact information? Or sort of like, why are you popping back up after all this time? Maybe you give them a piece of your mind, or you just sort of ignore them. They could be that walking red flag, or you're able to identify that. And again, like at an earlier chapter of your life, you might have taken this person up on that, either to give them a piece of your mind in person, or something where you might have been kind of like less healed, less evolved, and you're kind of like, okay, maybe they have evolved, maybe they have turned over a new leaf and there's a different experience. But there's something almost like with the Dusty where you're kind of like, yeah, I don't care if you've kind of become someone different, or you've learned your lesson, or you've grown and evolved. How you handled the situation, I'm not entertaining those energies. You walk away from my life, and that's kind of it. Sort of there's one and you're done. One chance and you're done. For this other person, it feels like where there were like legitimate circumstances, either on your part or on their part, where it created this distance that just sort of reasonably, something like you both would have come to that reasonable understanding of sort of like, yeah, that makes sense. We've only known each other a couple of weeks, or, the nature of what was going to happen. I'm hearing deployment. So for some, this may have been somebody that was like, they enlisted in the military, or they were going to be like deployed overseas for like an extended period of time, and it was almost something where it was like early on in the connection, and then there was a sense of like, yeah, you need to kind of prioritize that. Our lives are moving in two different directions, but there was nothing where it would have been like a negative parting of the ways. So that person may actually be like done with their military contract, done with their military service. And it's kind of like, okay, now I'm getting back to my ordinary life. And so they're knocking on that door like, hey, are you single? Are you available? Can we begin again? It feels like it's something as well with that idea of, again, like a third energy that is in this kind of mix here of these other kind of two people that are crushing, and again, that idea of like the plot thickens is coming through. It feels like when all these kind of, you're about to be bombarded with these kind of like blasts from the past, these people from the past coming back around, all of them well-intentioned, like nobody trying to kind of like take advantage or, trick you or anything like that. These people all have like legitimate interests. They all sort of feel like maybe I have an opportunity. It feels like even that Dusty might have evolved, might have made some changes, but again, like how they handled the situation, it's just kind of like, no, I don't want to go down that road again. It's like, just have a nice life. Like I'm not even giving that consideration. But it feels like it's something that, again, you're right on the threshold of kind of like stepping into new experiences, a new chapter in love. And so maybe this is kind of something that causes that person that you could be currently getting to know, that you're just starting to kind of develop a connection with, or you're in that talking stage. This may be something that gives them a run for their money. It's a little bit of competition because it's somebody that might have been kind of like, yeah, that was sort of a failure to launch. Life took us in other directions. And then, serendipitously, here we are back again. Here this person is reaching out, not just to kind of like come out of the woodwork out of complete silence and sort of resume something, but it's like they actually have some kind of news, some kind of offer, something to kind of present that sort of might change your opinion about circumstances, or look at them as like a viable option. There could be an opportunity to reconnect, or to explore something that just like wasn't possible before. So it feels like something that's very, again, this energy of the conjunction here as well, with kind of this eclipse, this moon and this sun up here in the Eight of Cards. It's the energy of like coming back together. So these crushes are kind of, they're coming towards you at this particular point in time. And it feels like, again, one of these people is sort of that red flag where you're like, ooh, nope, don't want to deal with that. Maybe you have some kind of conversation with them and it just kind of creates closure. Or you could ignore them. You could give them a taste of their own medicine and kind of just disregard them. But with these other two circumstances, it's definitely something to kind of look at. It's something that's interesting. It's kind of like, okay, I've got what I've had going on. currently, you know, this is something that I've already like invested time in, or you know, we're already starting to establish, we're trying to get to know one another. It's, you know, we've dipped our toe in the water as far as that's concerned. And here comes this other person that like fit in with a lot of the requirements of what I had wanted to experience before, and now their circumstances have changed, or their perspective has changed, or they've leveled up in some sort of way that they're not so intimidated by the idea of distance, and they're bringing something different to the table that may even kind of cause you to sort of you know, switch up, or have a little more, like, more food for thought, more to think about in terms of like, okay, now who do I choose? It's not just the person that I'm trying to build something with, but now there's this other individual that, like, yeah, the spark's still there. There was this possibility of what if once upon a time, and now we're in that experience, or they're coming forth kind of like offering something, or presenting actions and effort that speak to like, I want to try again, let's start over. So let's get some message cards and see, you know, since there's so many energies kind of like coming through here, I'm gonna limit it to just like any of these people. What do they want to say? What, and you can kind of just pick and choose, and sort of feel what might resonate with any of these particular individuals, what feels right for their energies. Okay, we have your words keep ringing in my head. Yeah, so again, this is the energy of like, you kind of like got away from somebody or from multiple people, where there's a sense of like, they might not have thought that the connection would make sense in the past, but it's kind of like, you do make sense. You make sense for who I've become, which is why they're kind of like backpedaling. They're trying to backtrack and see like, is it too little too late? And that might apply to both that Dusty and that other person that it feels like had a very good reason, or you had a very good reason to kind of say, let's be friends, or I don't think it's going to work out, or you know, maybe it was just kind of like, hey, I'm moving away, I'm taking this job somewhere, I'm going off to school, you know, I've got family things to deal with, you know, whatever that kind of looked like. We also have your name is following me everywhere. So it feels that that might be a mutual energy. That might be a confirmation for one of these individuals where you've seen their name pop up a lot. And there could have been other signs indicating like, hey, I think things might progress with this person, or they're circling back around. And we also have, I tried telling you the truth so many times, but I just cannot for some reason. So this actually kind of ties into that person from the past that you actually would consider giving not even another chance to, but kind of picking up where you left off with. And it feels like they've been thinking about this for a while. If something about the way in which the distance that was going to develop between the two of you, that's been kind of an ongoing thing, that held too much importance for them in the past. And so there's a sense of them wanting to say like, I made the wrong choice, but then they've been in the midst of like living a life somewhere else as you've been living a life somewhere else, and so there's a sense of like, should we just sort of leave well enough alone? But they've kind of gotten to this point of like, you know, I want to find out, I want to know, I need to know, like, is there something we can salvage here? So let's get some initials. This could be a first, middle, or last name, or could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. G, H, N, V, V, Y, S, F, E, I, N, W, L, Q, X, and R. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Please give the video a like or comment to claim these energies. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more content that I put out. Don't forget to hit that bell button for notifications every time I post a new video. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that in the description box of the video below. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the red Carnelian. So let's start by taking a look at who's got a crush on you right now. Okay, so we have the Seven of Pentacles, Temperance, King of Cups, and the Page of Swords. Okay, so this is somebody who has been watching you from afar, watching you on social media, most likely, although they could be somebody that is in your like physical environment. This is somebody, it feels like, that may be watching you like from a fake account or something where they're kind of just like checking out your social media page but haven't, or pages, but haven't necessarily like subscribed or followed. They just sort of like Google you and look away, or you know, they kind of like get on those different platforms and just sort of observe. This is somebody who's been like standing in the shadows, lurking in the shadows. There's a sense of almost like feeling that they've never encountered anyone like you. Like they're very drawn to you. Their feelings are very confusing for them because there's like, how do I approach this person? Because you're very much outside of the box of the usual type that they are attracted to, or you know, kind of what it's almost like somebody who isn't, would almost kind of think that like, what would someone like you see in something like me, in someone like me? What would we really have in common? This can be like an opposites attract sort of situation, where they're kind of struggling to just sort of like, you know, again, like, what do you seem to like? What do you seem to be about? What could I really bring to the table in this situation? There may be an age difference between the two of you. That could be something that is causing this energy of like a hesitation, where it's like, oh, I'm so attracted to you, but I don't know if you've ever dated anyone like with this much of an age gap. This would almost be something like a 10-year age gap. And that could go either way with this Page of Swords. This may be somebody that's like 10 years younger than you, you know, depending on how old you are, or somebody that's like 10 years older with this King of Cups right here. That kind of like big daddy energy, you know, sort of like, is that something that's going to make you uncomfortable? Is that something that you're into? You know, is that something that I'm ready for? This definitely could be something where, you know, this person is definitely, they're like all up in their head right now, kind of with like, what would other people think? But then also sort of like, what do I care what other people think? So this is like that silent observer, somebody that if they are a person that you encounter in like your everyday reality, this doesn't feel like it's just kind of like the random stranger that is like given off kind of like creeper stalker vibes. This would be somebody that you would be like familiar with. You might have said hi to this person. You may know them on like a first name basis. They may be very like friendly to you, very helpful. You know, somebody that isn't giving off like stranger danger energy. This is somebody that, you know, with this kind of temperance, this is something that is very like, it's a high vibrational person. They're not bringing like a lot of kind of like negativity to the table in this situation. It's definitely somebody that is like single. They're unattached at this particular point in time. You know, so they wouldn't be trying to like get you involved in any kind of drama. But again, there's sort of a sense of almost like, I don't know where our roads could intersect. I don't know if I'm supposed to just sit here and observe if there's a place for someone like me in your life, or if I'm ready for kind of what you bring to the table. It's almost like they might see you as kind of in this angelic, free-spirited sort of energy, and they may be somebody who is very reserved. I'm hearing stuffy. So they may be somebody that considers themselves to be very conservative, very old-fashioned, very stuffy, to where it's almost like you are sort of like this breath of fresh air as far as they are concerned. You're somebody that is like intrigued them incredibly, but then as they're kind of looking at you, the vibe that you put off, how you're living your life, you know, even this person might not have even had social media, or they didn't really do anything on social media, but you could be someone who's very active on social media. And so this could be like they created an account just to sort of like check out what you've got going on. This could also be something where, you know, again, they've kind of got some sort of way to kind of navigate different platforms, but they're not like posting a bunch of stuff. They could be somebody who's very reserved, very quiet, very private, kind of just keeps themselves, sort of like an introverted energy. But there's definitely a sense of sort of like this yearning to become part of your world or to invite you into their world. But it feels like they've been watching for a while. They've either kind of like known you for a while, like you've seen them out and about. If they're, you know, somebody in your community, like you've known them in that sense on like this very sort of surface level casual basis, you've known them for a while. Or if this is somebody that has just kind of like encountered you. It almost feels like something that they rarely go on social media. Like if they've just sort of seen you on social media only, they're rarely on there, or they kind of just go on there to sort of look at what like friends and family have going on. You know, maybe like they look at their relatives post, or, you know, people share different sorts of content with them. They could be somebody that just like when they're like, you know, waiting for an appointment, or they're, you know, kind of stuck in traffic, something like that, then they're kind of compulsively just or idly sort of like scrolling through things, and something may have like popped up in their feed, like an algorithm might have recommended them to you, something or you to them rather, something that like you've posted has kind of come to their attention. It may even be somebody that they know shared some kind of content with them that you posted, either because somebody that you know in common was like, hey, look what this person does on social media, and might have like sent that to them, and that kind of caught their attention. Or it could have even been something where, you know, somebody that didn't know that they knew you was like, here's this person that I follow, here's this thing that I saw on social media, and it was sent to them. And if that's the case, they almost like kept that to themselves of like, hey, I know that person. Hey, that person, you know, lives down the street from me, or I go to school with them, or I've seen them around. Like they kind of just kept that to themselves. And so this is sort of like a secret kind of phrase, fetish is coming through. So it's almost like it's like a secret fetish sort of watching you, or, you know, returning to whatever these sites are that you post on. For example, they don't like share with other people that like that's what they're doing. They're kind of like playing it calm, cool, and collected, but and they're not like necessarily watching other people as exclusively, or, you know, that kind of into things, but they're focused on you. And in other instances, this is something where, you know, there may be no kind of like physical contact at all between the two of you. You might not even live in the same, you know, part of the world, but there's something that has kind of like come to this person's attention. It's like a thing that is maybe not among the normal sort of genre that they take in, or the type of media that they take in, and something just kind of like came across their platform. They were watching some sort of video, and then the next thing popped up in the feed, and they didn't close it out, and all of a sudden they like heard your voice, or they were scrolling through something and they saw your face, and it almost kind of like stopped them, and like, whoa, who is that? And so it's an energy of somebody who's just kind of like quietly observing, intently focused on you, sort of like fixated at this particular point in time. Let's see what else you need to know about this energy. Okay, we have unmarked trail, caterpillar, and magician's sword. Yeah, so this is somebody, again, with that idea of like unmarked trail. This is somebody that you would be very surprised to learn that they have a crush on you, or that they even know you, or it's coming through have discovered you. So for some people, this is somebody that, you know, this is like an important person. This is somebody who has influence, somebody that is, you know, kind of a way maker, an ability to open doors of opportunity for others, or it's somebody who's very well established within their own life. This is someone very independent, independently wealthy, successful within their profession, established within their profession. Somebody that may also, again, like live a very different lifestyle from what you live, or, you know, they have different sorts of focuses. They may be not even somebody who's like spiritually awakened or, you know, very kind of aware in that sense, but this may even be something where you're kind of like a catalyst for this person's awakening. There's almost a sense of like curiosity with this caterpillar energy here, where they're not only sort of like drawn to you in terms of like attracted and having a crush, but there's something where you may actually be kind of like holding space for this person during a process of awakening. You may have been like a catalyst for this individual to awaken. You've opened this person's heart chakra. It feels like it's something that it's not just kind of like, oh, this person's sexy. Oh, this person's cute. Hey, this person posts interesting things, or even like weird things. But there's almost something that has kind of stirred within them, where now this kind of curiosity and attention is sort of like, okay, they could be seeing signs and synchronicities. They could have like, you could be that sort of like white rabbit that they followed down the rabbit hole, to use that Alice in Wonderland reference. That may be Alice in Wonderland, the books or the movie, may be something that is like significant for you, or like a sign for you, a synchronicity. But even this idea of like a caterpillar, it feels like this is something that they don't necessarily understand a whole lot about you. So it's a lot of it is this kind of curiosity. I've never encountered someone like you. I've never met someone like you. And so they're very like fascinated with you as a person, even just your energy. This may be somebody who's never really thought in terms of energy or vibe. They've only known like physical qualities that they like in people, or certain sort of like surface level things or mundane things that are on like a checklist of, these are the type of people that I date. These are the type of people that I gravitate towards. And there's this whole other like unmarked trail of sort of like, wow, I didn't even know that these were qualifiers. I didn't even know that these are factors. So it's almost like you're operating in this butterfly energy and they're the caterpillar. So there's kind of a difference there. That idea of like butterfly and caterpillar can also, you know, reiterate that essence of like an age difference between the two of you, different sorts of life experiences. This may be somebody that is still kind of like, you know, living in the hometown that they were born in, and they grew up here, and they've established a life for themselves. You may be somebody who is new to town. You know, you kind of been all over. You lived all sorts of different experiences, and so you bring those kind of like different energies to the table, where there's like an essence of fascination, or vice versa. You could be somebody that's still, you know, kicking it in your hometown, and this is somebody that has kind of like, you know, they've come in, they're sort of, you know, the world wise stranger, and yet you have captivated their attention. There's something about you that is kind of like, is very intriguing, is very unlike anyone that they have ever met before. I'm drawn to like this sword here in terms of, again, this may be somebody who's very quiet, you know, a person of few words. This, though, also like reinforces that idea of like a social media connection. It's possible they, you know, follow you on social media. This can even be somebody that is sort of like, you could have gone to high school with this person. Like if you went to a really big high school, this could be somebody that was like in that, you know, graduating class of a couple thousand people, and so you wouldn't know this person from the next person, but they noticed you, they remembered you. It was kind of like, you know, referred to them again through some sort of algorithm, and so they're crushing, they're watching, they're kind of, you know, sitting there very fascinated, very sort of fixated on you. Or again, they've taken to social media. Either way, if they're in like in your physical environment, or you know, this is just somebody that's like only has seen you on social media, that's the primary kind of like way in which they're watching, sitting in that secret admirer energy that it's kind of like, I don't know what to do in this situation. I don't know if I should move forward. I don't even know how to move forward in this. So let's take a look and see what they're going to do about this crush, if anything. Okay, so we've got the Five of Wands, the Two of Swords, and the Ace of Wands. Okay, so it feels like this person is very conflicted internally as far as like what they want to say, what they want to do. Maybe even for some with this Two of Swords, what's possible. Because this may be something that, like, if there's only this encounter on social media, if there's only this kind of like, I've seen your profile, I'm, you know, a subscriber, I'm a fan, I'm a follower, or again, somebody that just kind of like doesn't subscribe, doesn't follow along, you know, doesn't participate in whatever it is that you put out there, but they're able to kind of like, okay, I know what you call your account, I know what your name is, and so I'm just going to watch in that sense. There's almost like an energy of like, how do I even approach this? How do I even say anything? It feels like there's a real desire to kind of get to know you better. If it's somebody that, you know, also has like a physical world connection to you, this is something where they're almost kind of like torn between sort of like, okay, do I start to have conversations with you? Do I start to just like message you virtually, or, you know, and then what does that kind of translate into as far as like when I see you in town, when I see you at school, when I see you at work, you know, when I see you at the gym, like whatever that kind of looks like for you in your situation? Or is this something where I keep that essence of like, I'm watching you on social media, I keep that to myself, and I just sort of, I play dumb and kind of like, you know, come forward and just sort of like, hey, so how you doing? What do you think of the weather? What do you know, what are you doing this afternoon? And kind of approach it, you know, in that sort of sense. It's like they don't know kind of what's the right thing. And so it's almost like they're tangled up in the midst of this kind of like, how do I approach this? But it feels that it also, this Ace of Wands speaks to that energy of like ascension. So again, this may be somebody that like you're operating as a catalyst for this person in their spiritual development, in kind of like the first steps into a spiritual journey. It may even be something that you're very misaligned with one another, like energetically speaking, because you could be somebody that's more advanced or more evolved, and they're kind of just starting out. They're in that caterpillar energy. You know, they're not the butterfly yet. They don't have their wings. They can't necessarily like keep up with you energetically or actually. And so it may just be something where it's always kind of going to be this like, you know, this person that just sort of struck a chord within them, that inspired them, or, you know, caused them to kind of start to look at things in terms of like signs and synchronicities, awakening, like you're the person that kind of catalyzed that journey. But it may be nothing that's sort of like grounds into the material plane, or nothing that they'd be comfortable admitting. Also, that idea of like some kind of age difference between the two of you, or what they perceive or may actually be, you know, like very kind of like obvious differences between the two of you and how you present the lives that you're living, that it almost feels like something where they may kind of just stick to the realm of fantasy and might not necessarily approach, or wouldn't know like how to do that just right, because there's a sense like, I don't know what our common ground is, I don't know what our middle ground is. So it feels like for the time being, this person's just going to continue to kind of like sit and watch, you know, sit in this energy of kind of like fixation, fascination. They're putting out some really good vibes and very like neutral vibes. So this isn't anybody that you have to be like worried about. This isn't anyone that's gonna, you know, become like problematic or again like creeper sort of energy. It's definitely somebody that it's like you've rattled their cage in the best possible way, and they just don't know how to handle the situation at present. So let's get some messages from their higher self and see what they want you to know. Okay, and they say you're like my long lost best friend. So it feels like this really confuses this person. Like, why am I so attracted to this person? Why do I see glimpses of myself in this individual? And there's this huge age gap between the two of us. There's, you know, we come from totally different backgrounds. They're a total stranger. Why do I feel the sense of familiarity? So they're very like drawn to you, which may again be kind of like the questions that they're asking that's starting them on this kind of quest to look into the idea of like soul connections, or, you know, things of that nature. It causes them to start to even kind of look at their own reflection in the mirror. So this may be somebody that's having to like face some shadows. They're you know, stepping into a dark night of the soul now. They're going through a process of rebranding within, because you've sparked something in their awareness. We also have, I constantly feel you running through my veins. So this person is like constantly watching you. It's like they can't help themselves. I wouldn't describe this as like an addiction, but it's definitely a guilty pleasure. They look forward to things that you post. If you post consistently or regularly, this may be somebody that if they are like following along on your social media, they definitely got those notifications turned on, and it's kind of like, ooh, okay, here's something else. Here's a new picture, here's a new video, here's a new post, here's a new story, here's a new whatever. And it's something that may even be opening them up to a whole new world of kind of like interacting or participating on social media like as a whole. They also say, I can't face you right now. The intensity between us scares me. Yeah, so again, there's this energy of somebody that's like, they don't know how to handle this situation. They don't know how to handle you. They don't know how to handle these feelings. So it feels like for now, they're just going to kind of crush from afar. They're going to sit very anchored in that energy of like a secret admirer. So let's get some initials. This could be a first, middle, or last name, or could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. O, R, S, R, E, X, Q, I, F, V, S, E, N, L, and G. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Please give the video a like or comment to claim these energies. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more content that I post. Don't forget to hit that bell button to get notifications every time I put out a new video. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below in the description box. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. You chose the green Pistachio Calcite. So let's start by taking a look at who's got a crush on you right now. Okay, so we've got the 10 of Wands, the 5 of Wands, 2 of Swords, and the 5 of Pentacles. So this feels like the energy of somebody, and I'm hearing I've been following along for a while. So this is somebody that has been kind of on the peripheral of your life for a while. Somebody where you might have run in kind of like the same social circles, but you don't really know each other that well. The sense of almost like groups and gatherings with like a lot of people. So this could be somebody that like frequents different places that you go for celebrations or like on the weekends. So this could be somebody, you know, that is familiar with you through like bars, restaurants, clubs, the gym, different activities, something that doesn't involve your professional life, but would almost be kind of like the way you decompress from whatever you have going on, you know, professionally or like in your ordinary life. This may also be somebody from your hometown. Like if you've moved away from your hometown, this can be somebody that like when you come back to visit, they could be someone that like still lives there. So they've seen you intermittently at like different points in time. You might have grown up with one another or were kind of like peers or contemporaries, or they moved to that town at a certain point when you lived there. And both of you might have kind of even like taken these periods of time where you like you move somewhere else only to return there. So you've been like ships in the night sort of passing one another. over the course of time. It feels like this is somebody that would have been aware of you and you would have been aware of them when you both were like other people's plus one. So this is sort of a circumstance where this person's like always been attracted to you, has always found you to be, you know, very appealing or very interesting. It's bringing to mind almost like if you had attended like birthday parties or, you know, like big dinners or luncheons, or even the idea of like a Friendsgiving, different sorts of like holiday parties and events. You may have had like small talk with this person, or they've like heard you like tell stories, or, you know, they've seen you like interact with other people. They might have even seen you when you were in different relationships, like a couple different relationships, or they might have been in a couple different relationships, but it's always been a circumstance of kind of like right person, wrong time. This is nothing that would have ever, you know, had something where you could kind of like cross the line. Definitely could be like a mutual crush situation though. Something where it's like, yeah, there was really heavy chemistry between the two of us. The eye contact was intense, but it was never the right moment. I would become single and it would turn out that they were with someone, or they were single and I was like fresh out of a breakup and it just wasn't the right time, and then we went our separate ways, met other people. So it feels like there's been this kind of like ongoing, I don't want to call it a saga with this person, but it's always been this kind of like point of interest. Like every time you see one another, it sparks that energy of sort of like what if. There's a sense that this person has kind of seen you through many different manifestations in your journey, many different phases of your life and reality. You definitely could have first met this person when you were like a teenager or a young adult, and now you're both like in adulthood, or even kind of like older levels of adulthood. You know, you're kind of in your late 30s, you're in your 40s, you're in your 50s. Some of you're in your 60s, like, you know, just kind of take that as it resonates. And this has always been somebody that is kind of like on the outskirts of your reality. They definitely could have been somebody that was like a friend of somebody's ex-partner or ex-spouse. It feels like if this is somebody that dated somebody you were friends with, you're like not friends with that person anymore. Or if this is something where they were like friends with somebody who was dating or married to like a friend of yours, that would be someone that is now an ex-friend. So you're not even kind of like part of that social group, part of that social circle. Those kind of maybe like taboos or prohibitions don't apply in the here and now. This feels like something where it's like you're single and this person's single, and they've kind of like routinely or periodically sort of checked in on you over the course of time. And so something with this energy of a crush is they're seeing like, could this finally be the moment? Could this finally be like the stars have aligned and it's now our opportunity to explore something? So this is kind of like a long-term crush. This is something where at different points in time it would have been something they would have they would have defined it as like, I find this person attractive. There's been different points in time where they would have defined this as like a full-out crush. Times where they felt very defeated, like they had wanted to approach but then they hesitated and they missed the moment. They had thought, now's, you know, my chance. They would like see you again, or, you know, cross paths with you in some kind of like a casual way, only to find out you were dating someone, or, you know, you were just in town for a day, for like a holiday or something, and then the whole year would go by and there'd be nothing. This is somebody who's like hesitated in acting before, or up to this point in time, for like legitimate reasons, and also because of just kind of like fears of sort of like, okay, maybe this is weird. Maybe this is something that wouldn't work out. Maybe this is something where I'm in limerence. It almost feels like this person might have described sort of their crush on you to themselves at different points in time as like limerence. You might have also had that same kind of feeling. This is almost like with the blindfold on, with this Two of Swords, this is almost a sense of like two people who have always kind of been attracted. They've always kind of had this spark. And there's a sense of like, is this just kind of like in my mind? Is this something where, you know, it's mutual? Like there's been no kind of certainty between the two of you. Nothing that has given kind of clues or indicators that it would be wise to act upon this, or maybe it wasn't even like able to be acted upon this. For some of you, this is something that it would have just been like a forbidden love story, but finally those doors of opportunity seem to be kind of like open, or are opening. This person may be getting out of a relationship, they may be getting a divorce, or they're freshly out of a relationship. They've just gotten a divorce, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm crushing on you, but like, is it the right time to approach? Am I ready to move into something new? For some of you, this could even be something where it's like you're destined to kind of be with this person, and it may be a love story that is kind of like happening later or in a different way than you would have thought. Like, you know, a real and lasting partnership has happened or would happen, but it's like you keep crossing paths with this individual, like, for a reason. You would find them attractive, they definitely find you attractive, they're definitely crushing on you, but there's something where it's almost like it's a forbidden kind of an energy, and maybe that's just in their own kind of perception, like it's never really worked out for us up to this point in time, so why would I think anything's different now? So let's get a little bit more though to clarify like who this is that has a crush on you. Okay, so we have caterpillar, mindful, and many masks. Yeah, so this is definitely somebody that has been, it feels like there was a point in time when they had more of a central role, like you would see them often, they were relevant. This might have been somebody that was like known as somebody that kind of like, maybe you encountered this person and they like worked at a popular restaurant. They were a server, they were a chef, they were, you know, a bartender, they were a barista, something like that, where people would know them. This was kind of somebody that was known within a scene, or they were kind of like popular within some kind of, it's coming through as subculture, so maybe something that was like very niche for some people, or it's something where it's kind of, this might have even been somebody that was like, if they played sports, they might have been somebody that was like a hometown hero, or, you know, was kind of just like well known in that sense. They were very kind of like, you know, popular in high school, for example. You might have run in different crowds, you know, something where it's kind of like people knew who this person was, or, you know, you definitely like knew who this person was, and they could have kind of like faded from reality. You both went off in your own sort of directions, and it feels like whatever this person does now, it's different from whatever they were known as before. They might have almost either faded into kind of obscurity, somebody who like their glory days were behind them, and so they may even be, you know, and this energy of kind of like, ooh, I'm not exactly in my prime anymore. I don't know what I have to offer, especially if this is somebody that's like gotten a divorce, you know, they've been through some kind of breakup, maybe multiple divorces, or like big breakups. They may be somebody that their self-esteem is a little low at this particular point in time, or kind of like the nature of the crush towards you is sort of like, I don't know what I really have to offer, or they're kind of hesitant, it feels like, as far as like their trust or faith in love and relationships. It may even be somebody that's like, you know, I was under the illusion that like if I did all the right things, love would work out, and it didn't, and so this is almost something where they're bringing forth almost more of a docile energy. They might have been somebody who was very loud, very gregarious in the past, like when you knew them, or when they were younger, and they've kind of like, they've slowed down, they've settled into themselves. Something has kind of like knocked them off their square, knocked them down a few pegs, or as they've kind of come into their own, it's like their personality has reshaped. It's very different. Again, that idea of like mindful, this would definitely be a mutual crush situation. You have found this person attractive, you found this person interesting. It definitely is something where those feelings are mutual, and there would definitely be this like mutual sense within the two of you of kind of like, oh, if only this person were single, or if only I were single, I would have leaped on this, and that has happened. It feels like with that mini mass, like on multiple occasions, it's been kind of like right person, wrong time. But with this energy of caterpillar, again, this is somebody that is, they're single at this particular point in time. They're not gonna like involve you in any kind of, you know, third party energies. There may, for some people, this could be somebody that though is like wrapping up a divorce. They're fresh out of a divorce, or fresh out of a breakup, and so they're still kind of tender. They've just kind of created a new beginning for themselves, so they're not trying to rush forth into anything. They're not very optimistic as well, maybe about something about themselves, about sort of like, well, what do I have to bring to the table? And they could be like a very successful, attractive, you know, they're still looking good, they still got a lot going for them, but in some sort of way, it's kind of like over the course of time, as you've kind of like been like ships in the night. You've sort of crossed paths with one another only to kind of go off in different directions. Where they're at in this particular point in their life, they're kind of like, how would you see me now, as opposed to what I presented in the past. For some, and I'm hearing, would you remember me? So for some, this is almost something where, again, it was kind of just somebody on the peripheral, where it might have just been like a first name basis, or you had like limited interactions with one another. But it's somebody that it feels like has always kind of like, they always wondered, what if, what would that be like to like date this person? It feels like with this individual, you've either like run into this person recently, maybe over the holiday season, you encountered this person again, or they saw you. They might have even like seen you and you didn't see them. They saw you out at a group setting, or somebody like mentioned you at some kind of, this mindful card here, and we have group think. So something, again, that has to do with like social settings or groups of people. Your name came up in conversation and it got those wheels turning. They heard news or information about you and it caused them to go out and kind of look. For some, they're kind of like, they've Googled you, they got the contact information, it's kind of like, okay, I just need to reach out. Or for others of you, this is something where maybe this is somebody who's moved back to town, or you've moved back to town. In some way, there's an opportunity for like a fresh beginning, but you've really not connected necessarily that deeply. Or it might have even been something where you saw this person at a party, you got to talking, you got to chatting, you got to exchange information a bit, and they've been thinking about you ever since. And it's kind of like, okay, the recipe's right in my life. I wonder if we can progress forward with one another. They could be thinking about, I wonder what they thought of me. I wonder if they like me. I wonder if they think I'm more attractive or less attractive than I was when I was younger, when I last saw them. They definitely see you as somebody that, like, you have kept them on their toes. You've surprised them. You're somebody, that reinvents yourself constantly, or this reinvention, this kind of like version of yourself that you're embodying right now. This is something that is like, it's very colorful. It's very appealing. It's something that has definitely got this person thinking in that energy of like a crush, sort of like, ooh, I wonder what would happen if I asked them out on a date. Maybe, this is the time for this, potential kind of romance or this potential love story to get off the ground, because it never seemed to be the time before. So let's take a look and see what, if anything, this person is going to do. Are they going to act upon this crush? Okay, so we've got the Nine of Wands, the Hanged Man, and the Queen of Wands. Okay, so if this is somebody that is like you've recently reconnected with them, like they've come back into town, you've come back into town, or in some way they're kind of like, they're back in sort of the peripheral of your life. There's a sense of like strategy here, sort of watching for a window of opportunity, or kind of planning the approach. This is somebody that, like, if they're sitting in silence, but they're thinking. They're thinking up a plan. They're thinking of what to say. This is something that they're, again, seeing you're in this very juicy energy, but it's something that they're using, kind of like moving in the shadows to their advantage. They want to make a good impression on you. They want to romance you. With this little sunflower, it's like that. This is like they want to ask you on a date. This is somebody that would bring flowers to a first date, and they're kind of like, okay, where would we go? What would we do? We had this really kind of like great interaction, or I see them and they look good. This may be somebody that's even kind of like asking around, fighting the urge to kind of just move in impulsively, and it's sort of like, I need to get all the details, I need to get all the information. They may be kind of observing a little bit from afar, but it's something where it's like, I'm not just gonna like sit here, I'm not gonna sit on the bench and let this opportunity pass me by. So for a lot of you, this is something where even though they're kind of in this wounded warrior energy, they're still kind of fragile out of a breakup and the aftermath of a divorce, maybe even the fact that it's like they've crushed on you in various levels and in various ways for a long period of time. and they can sense that. They're, the sense of like eye contact and, different points where there were flirtations. There might have even been a moment where you almost kissed, or it felt kind of like I could see this person kissing me, but it didn't happen. Something where there's almost kind of like, maybe this is time for me to make my move. Maybe this is time for me to kind of like push through those fears in some sort of way. But there's a sense of kind of like, this is something that requires them closing out of like a chapter of healing, or kind of rebuilding their life in the aftermath of a disappointment, something like that, or kind of the sense of almost like, have I built this up into all this potential over all this time? It feels like they haven't been just obsessing over you across time, but it's something to where there've been periods of time where you've kind of dipped in and out of one another's radar, and now there's almost a sense of like, here you are and here I am, or the time is right for me. I think the time is right for you. I want to make that move forward. So it feels like this is somebody that wants to, kind of fight for your attention, fight for like a place in your life. Something where they may kind of want to start off slow as far as like communication or interactions are concerned, especially if they're coming out of like a divorce or a breakup. It's almost like, I don't want to move too fast and fumble the ball in this situation. But I also don't want to like sit by idly and you get swooped up by someone else again. You're single and then you're not, or, something happens and I kind of lose that opportunity, because there's a sense that this person's like, I don't know how many more opportunities I'm going to get. It almost feels like with this person that they feel like it's more than just a coincidence, that in some way, like an awareness of you has come to them again, or that they've crossed paths with you at this point again. And so this is almost like, I got to make that move. Maybe the time wasn't ever supposed to be right for us before. Maybe this was always something for like this stage in our life, for this chapter of our reality. We had to go through those other things with those other people to become this current version of who we each are. And like, this is the place where, the stars were aligning the whole time, and they're fully aligned. And so this is somebody, it feels like that they're going to make that move forward. They want to woo you. They want to seduce you. They want to make a very good impression. This may be somebody also that's trying to almost like get back into physical fitness, or they got a couple like loose ends to tie up, something where it's almost like, just like, hold the phone, I'll be right back kind of an energy. This is something where you've piqued their interest, but they're not wanting to like delay or sort of risk that this moment kind of passes the two of you by. Like they're very motivated to kind of act upon this crush. So for a lot of you, this is something where, it's kind of like they're thinking, this is my lucky day. How did I get so lucky that this person, that there was always that question of what if, there was always that spark, there was always that deep and intense eye contact, there were those almost moments, and now here we are in the place where I'm in a position to do something about that, and so there's hope that you're receptive to that. So let's get a couple message cards from this person's higher self and see what they want you to know right now. Okay, yeah, we have, am I good enough for you? So there's that confirmation that this may be somebody who's trying to kind of pick themselves up out of like a low period, low self-esteem, something that has kind of like closed out in their life, and sort of like, I want to get things right in this situation. I want to make sure that I'm ready. I want to make sure that I do things correctly. We also have, how do I get you alone? So there's that confirmation of somebody that wants to initiate conversation, somebody that wants to ask you out, somebody that wants to move in closer. They don't want to be a secret admirer. I would say that you could kind of define this as a secret admirer, but it's somebody that's plotting, like good plots and plans. This is somebody that's kind of like, okay, I'm planning my move forward. I'm creating that strategy, and I'm going to get into that warrior mode and kind of just push through the fears, push through the doubts. And we also have, I always hope to have you in my life. Yeah, so that's another confirmation of this is somebody that you've crossed paths with multiple times over the course of, like, since you first met this person to this current moment. They've popped up at kind of like in odd situations, at odd periods of your life. There've definitely been a couple opportunities that you might have had to explore something romantic with one another. And either there was a hesitation to act upon that and then the moment passed, or it might have been something where it's kind of like you or this person were in relationships or connections with other people, and so it was just nothing that could have happened in a way that would have been like satisfying or productive for either of you and what you had going on. But it's like the timing is right now. This person is single and available, you're single and available, and so this is somebody that like recognizes that and acknowledges that. And again, it's like this Queen of Wands energy where they're wanting to kind of rush towards you. So let's get some initials. Could be a first, middle, or last name, or could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got U, W, L, I, W, R, J, X, Y, Y, I, C, A, V, and B. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. Please give the video a like or comment to claim these energies. Subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more content that I put out. Don't forget to hit the bell button to get notifications every time I post a new video. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, I offer those through my Etsy shop, and there's a link for that below in the description box. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.